good evening, wherever you are. I am your host, Kage, with my co-host,
Neff.
And Buttons.
and today we are talking about the luck of the draw. We're going to be discussing the movie Tarot that just came out, kind of slipped under the radar. I saw this movie recently, as well as Neff. It was entertaining, definitely not the best, definitely not the worst. It's been a while since I had a curse movie. Like, you think about curse movies, I'm talking about movies like The Grudge, or like just any movie where here's the blueprint, here's the layout. You have a group of teenagers or people young in their 20s. They get together for a social thing, a party, what have you, and someone brings up a urban legend or a game or something, and they go and do it. And then as the movie goes, people start dying off. And it takes a couple people to start dying off to realize, okay, wow, maybe there was something to that curse, that story. Like the story of the tape that you watch that you die 7 days later. Yep. That's another curse movie. But yeah, Terror, it basically is that. Not to give too much away, but yeah, a group of friends get together, they find a tarot deck, and they start playing around with it, and bad things start happening. And just like I said, it takes a few people to die to realize, hey, there's something wrong with this.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with it.
Yeah, and to piggyback off your thoughts there, Kage, and to help the people that, not to give away too many spoilers, but to help them understand where we're going with this is the fact that, with these tarot cards that are dealt out in people's fates, if you guys know how that works, tarot stuff like that, the cards actually manifest themselves in reality. Yes. So I thought that was a very interesting way to actually depict the film. But yeah, I have to agree. I gave the movie a 6 out of 10. I thought it was a decent film. I think it's great for the teenage audience, and I think older audience would like it as well. I think it kind of fits any demographic because it is PG-13. But I thought the story was decent. Obviously, it could have been better, but, how many horror films do we really see nowadays that have the best writing and the best stories? There's not too many. There are some here and there, but I wasn't really expecting that walking into this. But I did enjoy the movie. I did like how they use certain aspects to you get their point across. Without having to make it too gruesome and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool. I actually think this would be a great movie for people that aren't into a lot of blood and gore. If you're kind of like scared of that type of stuff, or if you get kind of queasy in the theater or anything like that, I think this is a great suspense thriller type film for you. Although it does tippy-toe in the horror side of things. But yeah, I really did like Tarot. I would recommend it. Me and Kage kind of talked about this offline. He said he liked the film, but he also said he could see it on streaming as well. So I have to agree with him as well. Mm-hmm. If you don't feel like spending $20 to go watch a movie that you're not so sure about, then I think streaming would be good for this. But I wouldn't tell people not to go watch Tarot. So I think it's worth watching at least once in theater. And like I said, I think it's a great movie for people that aren't into the blood and gore, and you still want to be kind of scared to watch a movie like that, something different. I think it's great for that. But, it was a cool little movie for me. What you got, Kage?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. 6 out of 10 sounds like a fair score. The way I kind of judge things, it takes a lot for me to say something under 5. Something under 5 is generally, I'm looking at my watch. I'm wondering, when is this going to be over so I can get out of here. Like, I'm not even invested. I'm wanting to check out. Yeah. I didn't have that experience with Tarot. I was I was watching it. I was like, I'm engaged. I'm like, okay, I get the story pretty straightforward. I didn't really have any. I was kind of neutral on the characters. Mm-hmm. Didn't really have any favorites. Didn't have any ones that I didn't care about. Right. Actor-wise, I think the only one I recognized, I can't remember his name, but he was in Spider-Man. Yep. Peter Parker's friend, he was in it. He plays the stoner character. Right. In some aspects, I'd almost say he kind of played a similar type of character.
Interesting. Yeah, he was the comedic comedy.
He was the comedic relief for the movie. Yeah. There'd be a tense moment and stuff like that. The ending, that was funny. I was ready for the credits to roll, and all of a sudden it plays like a record skip sound, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it shows him. It's like, oh, you remember this guy?
Jacob Batalon.
Okay, yeah, Jacob Batalong. So, but all in all, the movie was it was a good time. It was a good watch. I highly recommend. If you don't see this in theaters, at least give it a chance and stream.
Yeah.
It's gonna scratch. I feel like it's gonna scratch that itch. Like if you're not really into horror, or maybe you're dabbling in it. This is a kind of a good middle ground. You can get in there, you can watch it, and kind of get your horror fix without the gore. That being said, though, this is probably my biggest criticism of the film, is that I'm watching it and I didn't realize it was PG-13. Okay, I walked into it thinking every curse movie I've seen, rated R, The Grudge, big example right there. Yeah, you see the cards come to life and manifest themselves, and the people are being hunted, by mysterious forces related to the cards. And every time there's about to be a kill, it's a tense moment, shadows, noises, something in the background type of thing, but you don't actually see somebody get decapitated or something like that. Like, they always show it off screen. It's filmed in such a way that you can tell that there's something going on that's not good for these characters. But I feel like a rated R rating could have pushed this above a 6, at least for me. Yeah, because it has these moments where it builds up. You can hear the music, you can see all the audio cues, the visual cues, and like, oh, something's about to happen, and all of a sudden it happens, and it's like, oh. And if it was rated R, this is what would happen. It would it would build up, and all of a sudden it would shock you with a big, I don't want to say gory moment necessarily, but like just something shocking to build up,
show
and then
you how serious the scene
right,
is.
to show you how
yeah.
serious it is, and then it calms down as we move on to the next character getting killed.
I think the only part of the film that kinda gave us that feeling was the first death in the film.
Yeah.
With the priestess in the
Yeah,
stairs. Yeah, so that was the only scene that really did that to me, but you did make a good point there. And a little tidbit, guys, side note, this film is based off a book by Nicholas Adams titled Horrorscope from 1992. So we do have an adaptation there from a book, so not necessarily a new idea, but it's definitely new to film. I know Kage brought up the point that he felt like, this movie has been in the same vein with things like The Grudge, maybe The Ring, curse movie, if he calls it that. I would say this is more like Ouija, but just because of the aspect that, not that tarot is a game, but like Ouija, it is a game, and it's kind of like you're dealing with.
Well, yeah,
You're dealing with the spiritual realm.
Exactly.
Right,
So I
it's-
kind of relate to that, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like when
I-
I call it a curse movie, is people messing with stuff
They shouldn't be
that
messing
shouldn't be
with.
messing with,
Right.
and then
Boom.
Dealing with
boom, and then one by one they start getting killed off,
Yeah.
and then you find out that it's not the Ouija board, it's not the planchette of the Ouija board, it's something
spirit.
that
Yeah,
a spirit
no.
that's tied to it, and then it's the same thing.
Construct.
It's-
basically.
Construct, yeah.
What do you think, Button?
So I was gonna say that, when I have not seen the movie, but when I saw the previews for it, the first thing that kind of came to mind was like that Bloody Mary movie, or even Monkey Paw. At first, because I was like, oh, it's a party, they're all playing around,
Talk to
goofing
me.
around, and yeah, exactly, that talk to me, and because it's a cult, it's that kind of spiritual, forbidden kind of, shouldn't be playing with this. Back in, I think it was like the 20s and that, like everybody, that was like a huge thing, like going and doing all this kind of dark magic, witchcraft kind of stuff. Like even in Hollywood and that, like they'd have parties, occult parties, right? And they'd be like, ooh, let's see if we can summon someone, or let's see, how many of these different kind of forbidden, things that we can play around with. And so it did give me that kind of vibe, and it also reminded me of like movies like It Follows, or
Oh yeah, yeah.
those Final Destination where it's like, oh, it's always lurking, it's coming after you. And, but I mean, Final Destination, of course, had nothing to do with like a spiritual thing, but as you mentioned, like a cursed movie, like that kind of is. They were essentially cursed because it keeps chasing them because death feels cheated or whatever,
Yes.
right? Like that was the idea. Like they should have all died and it's going to keep coming until you're dead. And
Finish what it started.
Exactly. So with It Follows, it's like, oh yeah, the only way to escape it is to pass it on to someone else, which is kind of the way The Ring worked too, right?
Yeah.
You had the videotape.
Good comparison.
But again, most of these people, they were not. It's not like they were sitting down going like, oh yeah, haha, it's going to be so much fun. Let's watch this videotape. It's like, it was accidental kind of thing where it's all like, oh yeah, I just happened to get this tape. Somebody mailed it to me. I put it in my VCR. Oh crap, like that, because that was the whole premise of The Ring itself
Yeah.
was, oh yeah, you got to make a
Well,
copy
it's
and
like,
send it
let's
to
let-
somebody.
Like Smile.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
just
Same
get
concept,
the
but-
party started, get the curse rolling. You're
Yeah.
watching the movie. It's like, okay, I get the idea, because the thing about tarot is once like
Because
you
like
get
you
it.
said, they summoned it, basically. They
Yeah.
summoned the evil or whatever by playing with the cards and making a game out of it.
Kage, how did you feel about the backstory of why the cards got cursed? Because I know that's something that you and Buttons had an issue with in Night Swim, but I wonder if they touched on it enough for you to say, okay, that's enough
I'm
information, I get
satisfied.
it.
Like, did it need
I was
background,
thinking about
more
that when I
background
saw that,
info?
because they go into why the cards got cursed,
Oh,
right?
okay,
And
gotcha.
so when I was watching that, I was like, I wonder what Kage thinks about this, because I know with Night Swim, and everybody watched Night Swim here, you guys are like,
Yeah.
I'd like a little more background on that. So I wonder
I-
if that was sufficient in this film as compared to that one.
That's a great question. I'm gonna say yes. I was satisfied. They tell a quick little story showing, not cutscene. This isn't a game; it's a movie. But you know what I mean. That they kind of do a flashback and they kind of tell a quick mini story of saying what happened to these cards, who is attached to these cards, why this is happening, and when it comes to horror movies, curse movies as I call them, and you want to explain an origin or something, you don't need to go super deep to get me. Okay, you said the who, what, when, where, and why, and I'm like, okay, I get that, I move forward. With Night Swim, it was like a 30-second,
And there was
no
like 3 or
flashback.
4 different
yeah,
stories involved. Like, oh, there was the previous owners of the home, and then there was
think it
like
was
a
convoluted?
really old, like 100 years ago.
Before the
owners of
house was
home.
built, where
yeah, and
this
then it was like,
land
oh,
was and stuff.
ancient when it was before
Yeah.
anybody had lived
Like,
there.
I feel
so
like-
you're like, wait a minute, how did this?
It wasn't like linear
progress?
for-
I feel like
Yeah.
I don't know if cop out is the right words. I would say for Night Swim, they gave you just enough to say, okay, this is what it is.
But it wasn't sufficient.
But what more? What more? What, and I'm like, I want to know a little bit more. I'm not asking for Lord of the Rings, a 3-hour
Backstory,
movie.
yeah.
Just give me just a little bit more. But if you're gonna tell me a backstory on why a curse, why a spirit is, why a serial killer, Jason Voorhees, is coming out, like, give me a little bit.
Well,
Give me a little bit more than what Night Swim had.
Because I mean, to be fair, with Night Swim, they kind of glossed over it a little bit, and they're like, oh yeah, these, because the whole idea with the pool was that it was a natural fed spring
Yeah, I
pool
forgot.
or
Yeah,
whatever,
you're right.
right? So they're like, oh, you're really lucky because this isn't, like just a regular chlorinated pool. Like this is natural water or whatever. And then the kind of backstory was like, oh yeah, back in whenever, when this was just a freaking hole in the ground and like a natural pond or spring or whatever, like, and then you're like, wait a minute, so why is only this one haunted? Like, this is a big subdivision with all these other houses. Like, mine is the only
Yeah.
one that's related to this. Like, nobody else has a cursed pool in this area. Like, why is mine the one that is haunted and cursed or whatever? Like, why isn't, like, my neighbor 3 doors down with the same type of pool? Why aren't they also, experiencing this cursed, atmosphere. It's probably
Yeah.
the same damn water. So why?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why
I
my
mean,
house?
you bring like I've been to Florida where there's springs everywhere.
Exactly.
Particularly in South Florida, there's a lot of springs. So
Yeah.
I'm like, if I were to
So-
watch a movie like this, it kind of gets my brain thinking. It's like, well, if we're talking about a movie where there's a spring, then chances are there are other springs nearby, and if they're all nearby, chances are they're connected. So theoretically, shouldn't there be this
Several.
story, like at least in
Yeah.
the surrounding area?
Guys
maybe
make valid points.
that's
Night swim to the pentagram, and it's all like all
I
these
would
other
watch it.
pools.
there's
I'd
gonna be
watch-
some guy in a basement with red yarn on a map. It's
with
like
the little-
I got this figured
the
out.
Push pins.
I got it.
like,
Yeah, man.
So with this movie, Tarot, we had a budget of $8 million, and the box office is currently sitting at 13.2 million.
Yeah, I mean that.
so
And
does
we're
it-
heading into, week 1, week 2,
Yeah,
because it came out last week, technically.
yeah.
Did it?
Yeah,
'Cause
the
you guys-
third.
It kind of snuck up.
Yeah. Oh. So
So it's like a week and a half.
okay. So it's not doing bad then for the fact that it's already
It
got
it wasn't
8.
it wasn't very big promoted. So I'm not expecting
I
big
remember
things from
seeing-
this.
Yeah, I remember seeing a couple
I-
previews, but that's it.
And real quick, before I forget, when we were talking about the night swim and talking about not explaining more of the origin, I'm gonna speculate and say it probably came down to budget
Budget and time.
and time. That I
Yeah.
mean, let's face
Well,
it.
that
if-
was. I think Night Swim was a previous short story or a short movie or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, because it was the. we.
short story. I'm leaning towards.
Because I could have sworn I know when they rolled credits, it referenced it.
Yeah, that was, I don't know if it was Night Swim, though. But I
Okay.
do think there was another film that you did say that. But I don't think it was Night Swim.
Maybe not
But we're
Night Swim.
definitely going to do some research on that.
Yeah.
Because if that, honestly, Buttons, if that is, I'm going to look into it. Because I'll read it. Because
Right.
that
Yeah.
could give us some insight. We didn't see it on screen, but it might give you more insight into what actually happened. Because I
Well-
know they have a short film
Well, 'cause I
with
thought-
Smile called Laura Hasn't Slept.
And-
No,
I've actually
because I
talked to some
thought when
people
we were
about that.
talking about it before that we had mentioned how they had to expand the story and push it from being a short story or a short film or something like that, and then make it into this longer one, and that was why it hurt the.
1408 was based on a short story.
Okay.
And I do remember that because I read it. It was a very short story, surprisingly short. Like if you've ever seen 1408 with John Cusack and
Yeah, The
Samuel L.
Room.
Jackson,
Yeah, they're in
they're in that. I love that movie. I will watch that movie to this day. I don't care how old it is. I don't care how many times I've seen it. It's a good film.
Right.
Okay. It's amazing that such a good film came from such a small, very short story. I'm talking less, maybe 10 pages or less. I guess that's an example of just good direction, good directing, good writing.
Have you seen Identity?
No, but I want to if you're comparing it to that.
A different type of story, but definitely interesting.
Okay.
Cusack's
All
in
right.
that as well.
Well,
You've
Okay.
probably seen that, Buttons. They're at the motel,
Oh.
and all this bad stuff starts happening,
okay.
and
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you the rest.
okay.
You've probably seen it, Kage, but that movie came out in like 03, 04.
Yeah, it's an older one. But so I mean, I think let me ask you guys this because we were talking about the PG-13 rated rating versus the R rating.
Yeah.
In the movie. Do you think that the PG-13 was strategic in the sense of trying to get younger audience because it's kind of revolving around teenagers? So maybe they're trying to get like a preteen audience.
It's like a marketing ploy.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, it's getting close to summertime.
appeals
We
to
want to get
everybody.
these kids in the audience. They can go see a horror movie without mom and dad having to be in the audience. Like, they can just drop them off
So-
and they can go with their friends, kind of thing. Do you think maybe that was strategic marketing?
Well, that depends. That depends. Kage, me,
Yeah.
Neff. Yo, I'm still waking up, everybody.
I'm talking to myself.
Okay, take two. Yeah, so
I think it depends. I think where you're going with that, Kage, is that I think it depends on actually what the book follows. Because now, once again, when I'm seeing that, a lot of these films that we're seeing are based off books or factual information, such as Ungentlemanly Warfare, it
Right,
makes me want to go dig in and do more research, even if it's fictional. And this book is obviously fictional, but
It is?
But what I want to do is I want to go and read the book, because if the book centers around teenagers in 1992, then it just makes sense to obviously keep the movie the same.
Right.
You see what I mean? But if the book doesn't center around teenagers, then I can see exactly what you're saying there. And I still think, even with that being true, whether or not it is, I think that makes sense, because like we just said, this appeals to all demographics when you have it set in that lane of teenagers.
Now,
okay, the kids can watch it.
Now, wasn't this, I don't remember, Neff, was this set like college students,
To
or
me,
was it like high schoolers
To me,
that
it
were having?
it seemed like college students to me, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I
That
don't
right
think you're
there.
wrong, because there's the reference of the dorms and
Okay,
campus.
okay. All right, so
Yep.
Yeah,
Because-
in the preview that I saw, it didn't really show.
Yeah, in the preview,
if-
it doesn't go into
It
that much.
it didn't
Yeah.
really show whether or not they were at dorms or at somebody's house, or like
Okay.
like a
Okay, yeah, because
bunch of
if it was
teenagers hanging out or
if it
whatever.
was like high school students, their senior year,
Yeah.
partying off campus, it's like, okay, we've seen that a million times in movies, because then that would kind of explain. But I don't know. Then again, we've had rated R movies with teenagers dying in high school. Final Destination's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be
Oh,
several.
there's plenty.
Yeah,
There's several dozen, I'm sure, that all kind of have
Look at
that
Jason.
same. Well, Jason, but also even the one with Frankie Muniz, the one where they're doing the video game. Remember he did that?
I remember, dude. That
Yeah,
is
it
a
was
really underrated movie. I remember that
You know what
movie,
I'm
but I
talking
can't
about? They're
I
playing
can't remember the
video
name.
game, and
You
he's
don't
looking at
remember
the
that,
screen, and he's
Kage?
seeing somebody sneak up on his
And then it
digital
happens
character.
in real
and-
life.
Yeah, and they're all like trying to use the game.
We're gonna
as
look
like
into
a-
that offline.
Frankie Muniz.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was like
It
late
was-
2000s, I think. It was like
No,
maybe
it was-
2007, 2008.
Possibly. I thought it
like
might have been earlier.
it might have
I
been.
do remember that movie.
Because it was after he had already finished
Yep.
Malcolm in the Middle.
Yep.
And he was kind of trying to do that Agent Cody Banks movies
Yeah,
and stuff
Cool.
like
I
that.
remember that film.
But yeah, he did, and he wasn't even the main character in that movie. He was almost like the comic relief for most of that movie. But I mean, I guess it kind of centered around like 4 different people. And so he would have been one of the main characters in it. But that one actually was kind of a cursed movie in its own
Stay
way
Alive.
too. Stay Alive, yeah. I ran across that little gem the other day, and I was all like,
I think
oh,
you've
yeah,
seen
look
that,
at
Kage.
Yeah.
Jokes on you, I haven't.
What was
Really?
the
You'll really
year?
like that.
What was the-
06.
06? Okay, so
Okay.
I was close.
Around
I was close, yeah.
That time frame. I think you really like that movie.
I know about this. Okay, I'm reading the premise.
You got Amazon Prime. You can order that up
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah, because like I said, I was
Okay,
looking and I was like, oh
okay.
yeah, look at that movie. I remember
That's a
that
good
one.
point there, Button.
Yeah.
It's a really nice point there. So, Kage, would you like to see a sequel of Tarot?
I feel like this is one of those
You got it.
movies where I got it. It's kind of a one and done. They didn't really. It
Did they
didn't really.
mail off the deck to some other unsuspecting teenage group?
With how
It was a
It's
good
all
conclusion.
like-
it was a fitting
What are
conclusion.
these?
I don't really have any questions on
Want
where
your
the.
fortune told?
I was expecting something at the end there, and they kind of let us on, but nothing really
Like
happened.
the last scare kind
You remember
of
that,
thing?
Kage? Like the end of the, like the very end where the friend shows up.
Oh.
I thought it was gonna be like some twist there, and it's just like, oh.
Oh,
no,
it makes
just
you
happy
think
ending.
something is gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, I do. I think that was interesting that they kind of gave the Spider-Man actor his own little spotlight there at the end, because it was like the scene ends, it goes to credits, and all of a sudden it goes like that, and then it shows him back just to remind the audience, hey, remember this guy?
To be honest, you can really tell he's the star of the movie, and I think they are trying to leverage his Spider-Man notoriety.
Oh,
Because
he's the
there's
only
really no
name in
like
there.
A-listers in this movie.
Yeah.
So guys, if anybody's watching this movie looking for A-list names, you're not gonna see any. You know, a lot of these people are unknown. They are a younger crowd.
That
I would
guy
say
that you're
early
like,
20s.
I know that guy.
Yeah, early 20s, but he stands out because he's in one of the biggest superhero movies ever. whatever. So
Right.
But
I
let
think
me
they are using that.
let me just say this as I look this up real quick. Okay, so when I saw the trailer, me and Neff talked about this off mic. We watched the trailer together, and I was just like, "Oh, that's Sadie Sink from Stranger Things." Boy, was I wrong.
Not her.
No,
Looks
it's
like her.
Larson Thompson. Now, I want you to Google this person next to Sadie Sink, and your mind's gonna explode because it's like you two can't exist in the same space, or the universe would actually explode. Because right now,
Oh,
so you
yeah.
can't see it, but I'm showing a picture.
Yeah.
Larson Thompson, she looks, and it's funny because they're both around the same age. They're both from Australia, both redheads. It's like you could easily, if Sadie Sink from Stranger Things had a sick day, she couldn't come on set, and
They
they
could
needed
just-
a backup. We'll just grab this other redhead. It'll
What-
work.
What do they call them? Stand-ins. Like, you know, you have like
Stand-ins.
when they're all like, oh well, we don't really need you to be in this scene, so we're just gonna get you a look-alike to be your stand-in. Because from the
All
back,
look-alike.
you can't tell the difference.
Yeah. No, it really had me going because I swore to you, Neff. I was like, yeah, that's Sadie Sink. That's Sadie
I
Sink.
couldn't blame you for the mistake.
But
there,
when I
'cause
pulled
they
up the
do look
side by
similar.
side, I was like, what?
Yeah. Let me give you some more information here, guys, just on release and then a little bit into the box office before we kind of wrap this one up. So at release here, we got some information that says the original release date was June 28th, 2024. They moved it to the 10th, and then they dropped it down to the 3rd, which is the release date that we did get. Box office, as of May 9th, 2024, Terra has grossed $8.6 million in the United States and Canada and $3.8 million in other territories. So I guess in totality, we do have that 13.2 million number, but you know, the budget wasn't that high of a budget. I don't expect the marketing to be that much. I would say they probably put 15 million in, if that, and I'm probably shooting high there. But you know, when your budget's that low, like we said, guys, it's a horror film, so you really need 3x. This movie most likely is not going to get 3x. We have the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is out right now, so that's going to kind of sweep for the rest of the week, maybe the next 2 weeks until something can knock it out of there. I suspect that'll be Furiosa or Imaginary Friend with Ryan Reynolds. But yeah, $13.2 million. They were able to recoup their production budget. Don't know if they're going to be able to recoup their full budget, including marketing. So, you know, it is what it is. But I can't kill them. The budget, they utilized it how they needed to. I rather see this type of stuff happen than see a $300 million movie and it only gross $150 million. So,
Yeah.
you know. As far as a sequel for me, I thought the story was interesting. I do agree with Kage. If they don't do a sequel, I'm fine with that. But I think the story is interesting enough to where they could possibly do a sequel. How they do that, I don't know, because I don't know if there's a second book that follows these characters. They'd have to come up with something completely different, and that may mess with the authenticity of the story in general, because now we're just pulling out of thin air. But I do like the concept. We've seen this concept before. I thought the concept was cool. Like I said, this is a movie that hits a lot of demographics. I see what Buttons is saying there. We're bringing in the teenagers, and I'm going to do some research and probably read the book, because I do want to see if it does focus around teenagers, and I think it does, because I don't see why they'd really change that for the movie. But then again, I could see from a marketing standpoint why you would think, oh, this would have mass appeal. So that makes sense to me, and I think the PG-13 slant gives it mass appeal as well. You know, all these things kind of intertwine. So I agree with Kage and Buttons. And Buttons, I think you should watch this on streaming when it comes out. It'd be a perfect stream for you. Want to hear what you say about it. The movie is 92 minutes long, so an hour and a half. Not
good
too
amount.
long. And I actually talked to Kage offline about this. I said they could have cut at least 10, 15 minutes out of it just off that. Honestly, I feel like maybe if it would have went straight through action all the way through, it might have made it even a little better in some people's eyes. But, you know, not every movie's perfect. So, yeah, I gave it a 6. Kage, 6? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Buttons, I can't wait to get your score for it when it comes out. I think this thing will be on streaming in the next month. That's just typically how it's going for films now. But... yeah, I thought the movie was cool. Anybody else have anything to say about the PG-13 rated R rating? I personally would have liked to see it rated R, but I could see why they
Yeah.
made it PG-13. I feel like if you take it rated R, you could really just expound on certain aspects of a horror film that would have made it way more cutting edge.
Yeah, I mean, more to that point, Neff, is that, you know, if you made it rated R, I speculate that they would show the entities, as it were,
little
the
more in
tarot cards.
detail.
It would be more detailed, but it would have deaths, kills that are related to the card death, for example, or the magician. Like the magician, I like that one.
My favorite was the Harlequin.
You guys talk about this, and it kind of, like, the first thing, even though I haven't seen the movie, is the first thing it kind of makes me think of when you're talking about the deaths for the individual cards is, what is it? Not Mortal Kombat, the other one where they're like, wait, is it Mortal Kombat where they do like the special finishes? The special
Fatalities.
like fatalities,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's Mortal
yeah. So Mortal Kombat, where it's all like fatality, and it's all
Well,
like each
no,
individual
absolutely.
special kill.
No,
like-
absolutely. That's
like,
I went into this thinking that it was gonna be like that because I don't know.
like
I don't
each
know a lot
individual
about tarot
kill is
cards.
particular to the
Right.
card
Well, because
itself.
there's a card literally called death.
Right.
You know, so I'm like, man, they could have went off the handle with that if this was a radar rating.
Right.
And then the magician, I think they executed that.
She's like, I pulled
That
a
one
rabbit
was
out of the hat,
executed
but it
well.
wasn't a rabbit.
It was guts. No, but
Just the head.
just the head. I mean, yeah, they pulled a head out of a hat.
And this is a movie brought to us by Sony. So, interesting information there. With that being said, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Popcorn Square. Hey, guys, go watch Tarot. If you don't want to watch Tarot after our review, go ahead and watch it on streaming. It's going to be there very soon.
Promise you won't be disappointed.
It's not a disappointing film. I think it's a cool little film, and I think it's something that teenagers can watch if you got some teenagers. And I also think it's a movie that if you're an adult, you'll find interesting as well. It's not a waste of time. Go ahead and watch it. Kage, anything else to add?
I think we've covered it.
Buttons?
No, man.
Alrighty, guys. Like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell for notifications, and share with a friend. As always, be safe.